March 19th, 2003.
And you can know that our forces will be coming home as soon as their work is done.
March 19th, 2008.
Battle in Iraq has been longer and harder and more costly than we anticipated.
Tonight, America in Iraq, 5 years and counting. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, extreme weather. Heavy nonstop rain in the Midwest leads to deadly flooding. The soaring price of jet fuel. You'll be paying more for an airline ticket and competing for fewer seats. And you're looking at the most expensive piece of medical equipment ever. It could save lives, so why are some doctors asking, is it worth the price?
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. The war in Iraq has just entered its 6th year with no end in sight. But despite the unpopularity of the war, despite the growing cost in lives and dollars, President Bush insisted today it was the right decision. He said the war can still be won and must be. Go! Go! A CBS News poll out tonight shows the percentage of Americans who believe the war is going well has nearly doubled since the U.S. troop surge began last year, though it's still less than half. Violence and casualties are down, but
Battle in Iraq has been longer and harder and more costly than we anticipated.
in 5 years of war, nearly 4,000 American servicemen and women have been killed, more than 29,000 wounded. Iraqi civilian deaths are estimated to be 85,000. As for the financial cost, the price tag for American taxpayers has gone from an early estimate of $50 to $60 billion to an actual $600 billion and counting. With that, our poll tonight found that more than half of Americans believe going to war in Iraq was a bad idea. The president said today the war has opened the door to what he called a major strategic victory in the broader war on terror. But a national intelligence estimate in 2006 said the Iraq war had actually led to more terrorism. As for a link between Iraq and 9/11, a just completed study of hundreds of thousands of Iraqi documents captured after the U.S. invasion found no evidence of any operational ties between Saddam Hussein and al-Qaeda. There are 155,000 troops in Iraq right now, and today protesters in Washington and other U.S. cities reflected our poll. Nearly half the respondents said most U.S. troops should be pulled out within a year. Both Democratic presidential candidates say they'd start bringing them home shortly after they took office. But Republican John McCain believes a U.S. troop presence in Iraq may be necessary for decades and agrees with President Bush that a speedy withdrawal would be a mistake.
We've learned through hard experience what happens when we pull our forces back too fast.
Inside Iraq, political progress has been slow, but today the Presidential Council agreed to hold provincial elections in the fall, meeting another of the benchmarks set last year by the U.S. Congress. And since the surge, there's been significant progress on the security front. Our chief foreign correspondent, Lara Logan, is in Baghdad.
Flying over the sprawling urban terrain of Baghdad gives a real sense of the massive undertaking by U.S. troops trying to rebuild the Iraqi capital and the rest of the country. Their mission has gone from all-out war 5 years ago to more of this, winning hearts and minds in a long, drawn-out counterinsurgency fight.
We have to keep trying to build on what we've done, to hold what we've got.
When U.S. soldiers flooded in under the surge, troop levels in the 5th year of the war reached their highest since the invasion, and the violence slowly began to drop. Largely because General David Petraeus encouraged deals with both Sunni and Shiite tribal militias, even those with American blood on their hands, to help the U.S. fight al-Qaeda. In response, attacks dropped from just over 5,000 a month last summer to around 2,000 in January this year.
On the one hand, it's heartening to be, in a sense, hit with questions, if you will, about jobs or about electricity or water or what have you, because it means they're not asking about security.
Would you agree that the political and economic progress falls short of the security gains?
Certainly, yeah.
Basic services are still critically lacking. Before the war, Baghdad residents got up to 24 hours of power a day. Now they only get around 7. And they live behind a series of vast concrete walls.
We'll never see any light on the end of the tunnel. It looks like just darkness.
Today, the streets of many Iraqi towns and cities are calmer, often because they're now divided, ethnically cleansed during the fighting between the country's two main groups.
Even America's top commander in Iraq, General Petraeus, is painfully aware that the gains in security made in areas like this can easily be reversed.
His biggest worry, only a fraction of the 80,000 mostly Sunni fighters, or Sons of Iraq as the U.S. calls them, have been incorporated into the official security forces, held back by the mostly Shiite government.
It's been time-consuming, it's been frustrating, but some of that I think is understandable, because what you're talking about is a government. It's being asked to hire people that were shooting at it, in a sense.
The general warns that counterinsurgencies last on average 10 years, which means this war is only about halfway done at best. That will be of no comfort to about 2 million Iraqis who've fled the country, and nearly 3 million more who've been forced from their homes, 5 years after the invasion that promised so much. Lara Logan, CBS News, Baghdad.
Turning to some extreme weather now, heavy rain and floods are being blamed for at least 13 deaths across the south-central part of the nation. The flooding was the result of a storm system that reached from Arkansas all the way to Maine. Hari Srinivasan has the latest on the devastation.
Relentless rain has left parts of the Midwest looking like marshland. Roads have been turned into rivers, streets into swamps, and homes flooded. The flooding has killed at least 4 people in Missouri alone, where the Merrimack River is well beyond flood level and still rising. More than a foot of rain has fallen in some areas.
The water's getting ready to go over the levee here.
The town of Ellington was hit hard.
It's been the worst we've ever seen.
Rising waters forced hundreds of people out of their homes and sent rescue workers into boats to help stranded victims. Reverend Tim Tipton asked for help, not from rescue workers,
In the name of Jesus,
but from God, as he surveyed the ruins of his downtown business. 5 people were killed and 2 others injured near Munfordville, Kentucky, when 2 vehicles collided in the downpour. Today, more than 80 flights were canceled from Dallas-Fort Worth Airport.
It's been a miserable 24 hours here.
Floodwater under the tracks is the probable cause of a derailment near Vienna, Illinois. 2 crew members were injured. The story in Arkansas isn't any better. Clint and Bridget Brannon were rescued this morning from their Allison, Arkansas home after the White River overflowed its banks.
All we got out of the house was just a few clothes and the kids and my mother. And everything else we're going to lose. I guess the water's coming up real fast.
Here in Batesville, Arkansas, just to give you an idea of how bad it is, the river I'm standing in usually runs at about 4 feet. Right now it's running about 26 feet. They're hoping it crests tonight so that people can get back to their homes tomorrow. Katie?
Hari Srinivasan. Hari, thank you. Meanwhile, in the presidential campaign today, Hillary Clinton challenged Barack Obama to agree to new primaries in Michigan and Florida, saying it's un-American not to have their delegates seated at the convention. Jim Axelrod is our chief White House correspondent. And Jim, Senator Clinton is pushing very hard for a revote.
That's right, Kate. She made a quick trip to Michigan today, arranged at the last minute to push for this redo of the disputed primary there.
And if Democrats send the message that we don't care about your votes, I'm sure John McCain and the Republicans would be happy to have them.
Behind in total votes, delegates, and states, Clinton wants another big state primary that counts. Obama, who does better in caucuses than big state primaries, does not. Another flashpoint, Clinton's foreign policy experience as First Lady also made headlines. More than 11,000 pages of her schedule were released. At first look, they were inconclusive. Take her 1996 trip to Bosnia. Yes, the schedule shows her meeting with Bosnia's president, as she often says she did. But the Obama campaign questions if there were consequential discussions beyond traditional First Lady conversation. The documents had nothing on that. The latest CBS News poll shows Clinton closing on Obama with Democrats. He's up 3 points now. Last month, it was 16.
This is a big plus for Clinton. This is the kind of movement she needs. She needs further movement, and she needs this sort of crisis in the Obama campaign to continue.
One more note from the poll. John McCain now leads both Democrats by double digits with critically important independent voters. Just last month, Obama led McCain by double digits with independent voters. Katie.
Jim Axelrod in soggy Washington tonight. Jim, thank you. Now to the CBS News Money Watch. Remember that huge rally on Wall Street yesterday? The Dow up more than 400 points. Well, most of it disappeared today with new worries about the credit crunch. The Dow lost nearly 300 points, and the Nasdaq, up 91 yesterday, gave back 58 today. There is much more CBS News ahead. Up next, this high-tech machine can work wonders in the fight against cancer, but some say it's not worth the very high price. And later, families making the ultimate sacrifice, losing loved ones in the war. Now to the rising cost of health care. Medicare and Medicaid payouts last year amounted to $627 billion. That's nearly a quarter of all federal spending. One high-cost item, high-tech procedures like the cancer treatment Dr. Emily Sine shows us in tonight's Eye on Your Health.
I am the mother to a beautiful 30-year-old young woman. She was diagnosed with a meningioma tumor.
When Rianta Wimberly started going blind from an inoperable brain tumor, her mother Glenda got on the web, found a radiation treatment called proton beam therapy, and sent a desperate email to doctors at Massachusetts General Hospital.
She has lost her peripheral vision and is experiencing difficulty seeing.
Just weeks later, Rianta was getting the therapy and the tumor was shrinking. Tell me about your vision.
With 4 treatments left, I have 98% of my vision back.
And with no side effects. That's because proton beam radiation is highly targeted, delivering its dose only to the tumor and sparing the surrounding tissue, which is important for pediatric and certain rare cancers.
This shapes the beam of protons.
Dr. Jay Loeffler treated Rianta.
It's a real delight to be able to offer patients proton therapy. You see that during the treatment, they have less side effects.
But proton beam therapy is at the heart of a debate over rising healthcare costs. It's the most expensive device in medicine today. The technology is 2 decades old and 5 centers are in operation, but now 8 more are in the works, like this massive facility at the University of Pennsylvania, soon to be the world's largest, at a cost of $140 million.
This is 3 stories, this gantry that spins around the patient. This whole structure rotates around the patient.
Total weight of this?
Probably close to 1 million.
1 million tons
yes.
Of equipment.
A giant machine called a cyclotron produces the radioactive particles called protons.
So this is the cyclotron itself. This is a 200-ton piece of machinery that accelerates the protons to 230 million electron volts.
The protons exit the cyclotron and huge magnets direct the beam of radiation the length of a football field into treatment rooms.
So we're actually leaving the cyclotron area now and walking along the beam line. The beam will travel through these magnets and that will steer the beam into the different rooms.
Competitive pressure is one thing driving the building boom, says radiation oncologist Dr. Richard Stock.
It's kind of a vicious cycle because as one center opens up, other centers and other hospitals surrounding it have to try to compete for patients.
And while there's little disputing the value of proton beam for certain rare cancers, increasingly it's being used for more common cancers like prostate. At double the cost of other radiation treatments, many experts say it's being used without proof it's more effective.
There is no good evidence, medical evidence, that it is better than current state-of-the-art intensity modulated radiation therapy.
Is this a better treatment for adults than conventional
In my
radiation?
opinion, it's a better treatment. The bigger issue, though, is the increased cost associated with protons worth it to society? And that's
your opinion?
In my opinion, it's worth it if we can reduce the initial cost of building proton centers.
But while the cost is extraordinary, so are the results for this family.
This was my only option. Through unbreakable faith, I'm here.
She has unbreakable faith. I have unspeakable joy.
And I love you so much.
I love you so much.
At Rianta's hospital, a 6-week course of treatment costs about $100,000. Standard treatment would cost about $50,000. Katie, it is all covered by insurance.
And I guess it's worth it if it's you or someone you love.
That's one way to look at it.
Is it possible to bring the cost of this treatment down?
They're working on it. Researchers are trying to create one that would cost about $19 million as opposed to this $140 million. Has yet to be built or tested.
All right, Dr. Emily Sine. Emily, thank you. When we come back, soaring fuel costs are hitting the airlines hard, and if you fly, you'll be paying the price. After setting record after record, the price of oil fell sharply today over concerns that the U.S. economic slowdown will cut demand. Oil closed at $104.48 a barrel, a drop of nearly $5. The price is not expected to stay down, though, and airlines are struggling to pay their rising jet fuel bills. So if you fly, you'll be helping them. Here's Nancy Cordes.
Think you're feeling pain at the pump? Imagine if you drove one of these. Jet fuel prices are soaring faster than gasoline. Last March, jet fuel was $1.85 a gallon. This month, it hit $3.48, nearly double the price in just 1 year.
And on top of that, it exceeds by 3 to 4 times the amount of profit this industry made the last 2 years.
Just a $1 increase in a barrel of oil can cost an airline an extra $60 million a year. Fuel is now the #1 expense for the major airlines, more costly than employee salaries or even the airplanes themselves. It's part of the reason Delta and Northwest recently attempted, unsuccessfully, to merge.
A larger airline will not get better fuel prices, but they will have a larger revenue base to be able to pay the higher fuel.
The other option? Raise fares. The major airlines have done that an astounding 9 times just since the start of the year.
It's hard for me to track anymore because they're coming so fast.
Rick Cini runs the website farecompare.com. He says a flight from Dallas to Raleigh that was $670 last year is now $916. Cincinnati to Detroit was $768. Now it's $948.
You need to shop earlier in order to find a deal. They're harder to find, but they will be out there.
Passengers may also be faced with fewer choices as airlines look at dropping unprofitable routes and grounding older, less fuel-efficient aircraft. They've considered removing seats, even magazines, or stripping exterior paint because a lighter plane burns less fuel. Just yesterday, Delta offered buyouts to more than half its workforce. And Katie, other airlines have hinted that these fuel costs may drive them to similarly desperate measures.
All right, Nancy Cordes, thank you very much. Coming up next, the war wounds that never heal. Growing up without a father.
Because it goes on in school.
Finally, tonight on this 5th anniversary of the Iraq War, the true cost isn't measured in dollars, but in human lives. Lives lost and lives changed forever. Well over 3,000 American children have lost a mother or father in Iraq or Afghanistan. From Fort Campbell, Kentucky tonight, David Martin.
What began 5 years ago as shock and awe has become a daily grind of grief and survival for the nearly 4,000 families of the fallen.
It's the first thing I think about in the morning still, last thing I think about before I go to bed at night.
Stephanie Dosty's husband, Sean, was killed in December of 2005. Dana Lamberson's husband, Randall, was killed 4 months later. With the soldier in the family dead, she had to move out of their base housing.
He was the one that went around and put every nail in the wall. I was going to have to undo everything that he did. Just remember that.
Every time Digna Lopez comes back to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, she visits the memorial where her husband William's name is inscribed.
I miss him so much.
What's been the hardest part?
Oh my God, being a mom and a dad, 24/7.
The only thing in the world that my kids might want, I cannot give them, which is their dad.
3 soldiers, 3 widows, 7 children who will grow up without a father. For Bailey Dostie, it means family outings to Arlington National Cemetery.
She still cries for him every day.
Children love to dress up like grown-ups, but it should never be like this.
It was the first time that I actually pulled the uniform out of the trunk. They were excited to put that uniform on.
The Gold Medal of Remembrance is bestowed upon Kelsey Lambertson.
You've heard of Gold Star mothers who have lost a child in war. Now there are Gold Star children who have lost a parent.
It really tells you how short life can be. Like, my dad was only 36.
That's not a lesson you're supposed to learn on your 12th birthday, which was the day Kelsey's father, Randall, died. How does a mother handle that?
And I told Kelsey that this day belonged to her 13 years longer than it did her dad. So, and she liked that.
But you don't forget about it. You don't, like, it's sketched in your mind for the rest of your life.
The Valentine Stephanie Dostie left at her husband's memorial will someday blow away, but his name will forever be there, etched in stone. David Martin, CBS News, Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
And that's the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric. Good night.